All right, they're just getting started finally.
Can we go back on the record, please? Jeremiah, record. We're back at 231-500-139, State of Utah versus Kouri Richens. Just for clarity, can I have counsel for the state make their appearance, please?
Good morning, Your Honor. Brad Bloodworth, Lindsay Shervinack, Joseph Hill, and Fred Burmester for the state.
Well, the volume sucked.
Defense, please.
Wendy Lewis, Catherine Lester, and Alexander Ramos from Kouri Richens.
Okay. I appreciate everybody here in the gallery has exercised great patience this morning. We needed to discuss some legal issues related to the admissibility of evidence. Couldn't have had that discussion in the presence of the public in a way that would preserve the integrity of the process going forward. So I appreciate your patience. Mr. Bloodworth, before we get rolling this morning, I understand there's some housekeeping details we need to address.
Yes, Your Honor. The state would like to provide the court with something of an overview regarding how the state will present its preliminary case. The state has presented most of its evidence and argument in paper in advance of today, notably including the transcript of the detention hearing, which the court has already admitted into evidence, along with 60, I think since now, other exhibits. We intend to be mindful in our presentation to not belabor well-established evidence. To that end, we ask that the court moves along when appropriate. The opposite, of course, holds true if the court seeks additional information. If the court would let us know, we will present it.
Understood.
Hello.
Speaking of our papers, back in May, the state had submitted a bench memo. I have two errata that I would like to put on the record. The first is on page 20 and 24, Your Honor. There's a date that refers to Friday, March the 5th, 2022. As a calendar will tell us all, that was Friday, March the 4th.
Okay, got it.
At page 10, in reference to a divorce consultation, the state wrote that occurred in January of 2022. The state asked that the court strike the date. The court will call some litigation related to this matter that occurred after the state filed that bench memo. That litigation revealed that date was not accurate.
There she is.
Any others?
Those are the errata, Your Honor. The state will call in its presentation Detective Jeff O'Driscoll and experts Chris Kotrodemus and Brooke Carrington. The state has provided the defense with advance notice of those witnesses. When the state calls Detective O'Driscoll, the state will not conduct a direct exam. Instead, the state will refer the court to his testimony at the detention hearing. The state is essentially offering Detective O'Driscoll for cross-examination by current defense counsel within that scope as, in the best interest of a fundamentally fair proceeding, since they've not yet had an opportunity to cross-examine him. The state provided the defense with advance notice of this approach and reserves the opportunity to redirect Detective O'Driscoll. Finally, Your Honor, I'd like to, I guess by stipulation, admit a few more documents. The first is what we have labeled as 7A. Exhibit 7 in the court's binder.
The cell-bright extraction report.
It does, Your Honor, and it's in there, and we refer to it in our papers.
Oh, Cellbright.
Because it has a screenshot of a navigation system. It is in 7A, but absent a telescope, the court's not going to be able to read it. So we have blown that up and labeled that 7A. If I may pass it up to the court.
Ms. Nestor, Ms. Lewis, any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Your Honor, the other document we've labeled 67, and that is some notice for claim stage from True Stage. They've been provided in discovery. They've been referenced They just have not yet been.
What's the number?
6-7, Your Honor.
What is 66? You referenced 66, but
Right.
understood. It's already in the binder. Got it.
It is, Your Honor.
And 66 is exhibit, correct, counsel? Stipulated. My apologies. Is 67 stipulated?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. 67 and 7A are,
Your Honor, may I?
of course.
Thank you. Your Honor, the final two exhibits are docket references 123 and 124. I'm not sure how they got left out of some of the earlier discussion on this, but they did. So the state moves 123 and 124.
Any objection?
No objection.
Docket entries 123 and 124 are admitted for the purpose of today's preliminary hearing.
Your Honor, unless the court has anything, the state will call Detective O'Driscoll.
Hey,
Ms.
it's the
Lewis,
cops.
Ms. Nestor, Mr. Ramos, anything housekeeping-wise?
No, Your Honor, nothing possible.
Okay. Detective, let's get you sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter
No
before the court
mods.
to be the truth, the whole truth, and
Aye,
nothing
blood.
but the truth, subject to the means and penalties of perjury?
Yes, I do.
All the trolls are coming out. Ah, Sheila. Bro, they're real
Your Honor,
upset.
the state tenders Detective O'Driscoll for cross-examination in the scope of the direct conducted at the detention.
Understood. Ms. Lewis?
Good morning, Detective.
Good morning.
We haven't met. I'm Wendy Lewis. I'm one of Ms. Richins' attorneys.
Thank you.
So, Detective O'Driscoll, when was it that you were first asked to take over this case?
In March of 2023.
And who was on this matter before you as lead detective?
Detective Jamie Woody.
And why was this matter turned over from Detective Woody to yourself?
Detective Woody moved divisions from the investigations division to the patrol division. She had an opportunity to have some auxiliary assignments that are only available in that division, specifically a canine handler position.
Did you ever become aware of any evidence or any issues with Detective Woody mishandling evidence in this case or other cases?
No.
All right, when you first took over this case in March of 23, what was it that you reviewed initially?
I was not able to review the entirety of the information that was available in the case, but specifically, most of the information that I received was from updates from investigators that had been working the case prior to me. I was able to review some of the supplemental reports that had been entered into our CAD file, but I don't recall the entirety of every document or piece of information that I reviewed.
Did you review all the police reports that had been written up to that point?
From our office?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
Did you review all of Detective Woody's reports?
I believe so, yes.
Now, who did you interview initially when you first took over this case?
The first interview I conducted, I believe, was with Ms. Richins.
All right. So that interview, well, I'm going to get back to that in a minute. Before we talk about the interview with Ms. Richins, did you, I want to go back to the early morning of March 4th, 2022.
Okay.
Did you review evidence about the investigation that was done that night?
Yes.
And what investigation was done at the home that night? Or that early morning hours of March 4th, 2022?
Responding deputies conducted an initial interview with Ms. Richins. Detectives were then called out, and they conducted, I believe, a separate interview with Ms. Richins as well as other people that were then at the home by the time they arrived. And I believe they conducted a search of the home for any kind of evidence that may have helped them understand what had happened.
And what was seized from the home that night as potential evidence? Are you aware?
I don't know a complete list, no.
Are you aware if anyone was searching for any illegal drugs in the home that night?
I do not know.
Were any illegal drugs found in the home that night?
I don't believe so.
So no fentanyl was found in the home?
Not that I'm aware of.
Were there any unidentified pills, light green pills, blue pills, dark green pills, anything like that found in the home the early morning of March 4th?
I don't believe so.
Were there prescription medications taken at that time?
I believe so, yes. Part of death investigation is to document and collect prescription medications for the scene. I can't tell you specifically which ones, though.
Okay, sorry, let me just speak over you. Were there any non-prescription medications or illegal substances taken from the home that night of any kind?
I don't believe so.
Eventually, or early on when you started the case, were you able to review the medical examiner's report?
Yes.
And what was your understanding of what caused Mr. Richins' death based on that report?
The medical examiner's report identified that the cause of death was drug intoxication with a specific drug being fentanyl.
All right. But nothing was found or seized the early morning of March 4th that included fentanyl. Is that correct?
No fentanyl was seized that I'm aware of, no.
All right. Was there any glassware seized in that initial search?
I don't know.
You don't know if there was glassware seized, such as copper mugs or shot glasses? You're not aware?
I know with review of supplemental reports I could find that information, but right now I don't know if during the first search on the morning after Eric Richins' death, if those were collected or not.
Were they collected at some other time?
Yes, I believe some copper cups were collected from the home subject to a search warrant.
All right. When was that search warrant that was executed on the Richins' home? You said after.
There were multiple that were executed. The first one after Eric Richins' death, I believe, was in April of that same year, mid to late April. I don't remember an exact date.
Was this after the medical examiner's report had been reviewed?
Yes.
Were you present for that?
No.
But you reviewed reports regarding that search?
Yes.
Was there any Oxycontin found in that search?
I know during one of the searches that there were some prescription opiates that were not in a prescription container that were found in the home. I don't know if they were specifically Oxycontin.
Were they fentanyl?
No.
Were they tested at some point in the course of this investigation?
I don't know.
They
weren't
I
tested?
could review supplemental reports and get that information, but I don't.
What?
But you don't know. Were there any illegal drugs or drugs that weren't prescribed that were seized in that April of 22 search?
I don't believe so.
Did there come a time that some THC gummies were seized?
Yes.
Do you know when that was?
I would have to check dates on the receipts of those items and evidence. It could have been during that first search in April, or it could have been on a subsequent search. I'm not sure.
So there may have been illegal substances or THC, which is an illegal substance, found in that search.
I believe THC was found in the home during one of the search warrants executed on the home.
All right. And were they in the form of gummies or some other form of THC?
They were edibles.
Edibles. So were the edibles, were you made aware, or are you aware of who the edibles belonged to?
We received statements that they belonged to Eric, to the decedent.
Were those edibles tested?
Yes.
And did you review a report regarding those edibles?
Yes.
And did that report, that initial report, say that there were traces of fentanyl in those edibles?
No,
You did not review a report that said there was fentanyl in the edibles?
no.
So, as you were investigating this case, well, let's strike that. I'll come back to that. So you talked about that your first interview in this case was with Kouri Richens. What was the date of that interview?
I believe it was April 14th of 2023.
So this was about 13 months after Mr. Richens' death.
Correct.
So you said before that conversation with Ms. Richens, and where did that conversation take place? I'm sorry.
At her home at 282 West Willow Court in Francis.
All right. And you had reviewed a number of reports prior to that interview.
Several, yes.
So you had an idea of the investigation that Detective Woody had already done on this matter.
I had a partial understanding of the investigation that she had conducted.
Who was with you when you did that interview? Were you alone or was there another officer with you?
No, Sergeant Hoffmeyer was with me as well.
Sergeant. Had you discussed this matter with him prior to this interview?
I just requested that he accompany me because we had both newly been put into the investigations division and would both be fairly involved with the case.
All right. Had you read correspondence prior to this interview with Ms. Richens, from Ms. Richens' prior counsel to the Summit County Sheriff's Office?
No.
So you hadn't read any correspondence where Ms. Richens' counsel asked that she not be interviewed with counsel present? You hadn't read those yet?
No, I had not.
Now, taking over as lead investigator, didn't you know that she was represented by counsel?
No, I did not.
During the interview with Ms. Richens, did you become aware that she was represented by counsel?
Partway through the interview, it became apparent, yes.
But you didn't ask her at any time during the interview if she wanted counsel present, correct?
I did. I told her partway through the interview, her mother, Lisa Darden, came to the home, and she made a statement about whether or not Kouri should talk to us without, she said the word Sky, the name Sky. I assumed that that was an attorney that she had contacted. And at that time, I told her, if you would rather have an attorney present here while we talk, that's fine. And she declined.
Let me show you just a portion of that interview. Colleen, if you can give me that. Page 215. Can we show this on the screen to the witness? Thank you.
I want to see video. I want to see video. This Texas story is crazy. I'm researching right now. Nat's researching too. We're gonna do another live after. This Brenna swindle.
If I could direct you, Detective, to the very bottom of that page as your statement at the bottom of that page. If you could just repeat that, not read it out loud, but if you could repeat that.
I guess it's crazy. I don't know. Well, I'm looking up the information now.
Now, that statement was made as you were leaving the house, correct?
It appears so, yes.
And do you recall that statement that you made to Ms. Richens as you were leaving the house?
Yes.
And what was it you told her then?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
What was it you told her as you were leaving the house, reflected in that statement?
In this statement,
Yes.
that she could have an attorney present while we talk. I'm guessing that's what you're getting at.
Well, but you finished talking for that day, correct?
I believe so.
This was, in fact, the very end of the transcript that you were walking out of the house, correct?
It looks like it.
And you told her if she wanted an attorney at future interviews, that would be fine.
Yes.
All right. Does that, we'll strike that. Isn't it true, Detective, that that is the only time that you told Ms. Richens that she could have an attorney present when being interviewed, if she wished to?
Roll the cops.
I recall making that statement midway through the conversation. If it's not in the recording, then I didn't.
All right.
But I do remember making the statement that we were happy to have an attorney present while we spoke to her.
at least as you were leaving.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of the investigation and interviews you did prior to Ms. Richens' arrest. As part of your investigation, is it true, isn't it true, that you looked into Kouri's relationship with a Mr. Grossman?
Yes, some other investigators, I wasn't directly involved with contacting Mr. Grossman, but yes.
And that is someone that you have referred to, or I don't know if you personally, but has been referred to in transcripts as Ms. Richens' paramour, correct?
Correct.
Paramore.
And you reviewed texts between Ms. Richens and...
They're talking about the Paramore situation. They're talking about the person that, if you didn't watch the previous live stream, we covered like a lot of the details, you know, but Paramore is like a term for somebody that's like cheating with somebody else, I guess, other than they're having sexual relations or whatever, other than their wife or husband or whatever. So this Paramore is, you know, she allegedly poisoned and killed her husband, Kouri, but then she was also supposedly talking to somebody else on the side. Even the night of his death, she was talking to somebody else.
this individual, isn't that correct?
Correct.
Did you also investigate the texts between Eric Richins and the women that he'd been having affairs with during that period of time?
I didn't personally. I don't know that any of our investigators did.
Have you ever reviewed any texts or calls between Eric Richins and women that he was having affairs with prior to his death?
Objection, Your Honor, that seems fast enough, but it's also beyond the scope of the testimony of the detention.
So the first part of that objection is overruled. The second part, though, I'm not sure how this has an impact on the probable cause determination the court will need to make.
Well, Your Honor, I believe that the fact that nobody was investigated other than Ms. Richins is relevant. And this would be a potential alternative suspect that
Certainly
there was no
at
investigation.
trial, Ms. Lewis, I understand, but preliminary hearings are not supposed to be a discovery tool. The irrelevance objection is sustained.
So, Detective, are you familiar with someone by the name of Carmen? I believe it's Lobber, is that how it's pronounced?
Yes.
And how are you familiar with her?
She became a person of interest in this case at one point when detectives started investigating
Who's that?
associations and contacts of both Kouri and Eric Richens. Investigators from our office were familiar with her background in having a criminal drug history, and she became the target of a separate investigation as she related to Ms. Richens.
Could you maybe just explain that for me a little more? How was she a target related to the Richins case?
Text messages were located in the defendant's phone from a phone number that was found to belong to Carmen Lobber.
Okay, the dealer.
At that time, detectives started looking into Carmen Lobber and her activity. They found that she was on a drug court program in another county and started investigating her as related to Ms. Richens, having worked with her and having cleaned houses for both her business,
Ooh.
her realty business, as well as her personal home.
Oh, so is that
Just to
the
clarify, Ms. Lobber
housemaid? The cleaning?
did cleaning for Ms. Richins' business
Yes.
and in the Richins' house. Did I have that straight?
Correct.
All right. And did you execute a search warrant, or was a search warrant executed on Ms. Lobber's home?
Yes.
Were you present for that?
Yes.
And were there illegal items seized during that time?
Yes.
Was she arrested at that time?
Yes.
All right. Do you recall when that was?
I believe it was towards the end of April 2023. I don't know an exact date.
So after Ms. Lobber's arrest, did you interview her?
Yes.
How many times have you interviewed her since April of 2023? You or others associated with this investigation? Clarify.
I believe 4 official planned interviews.
What about unplanned, unofficial interviews?
I've spoken with her, but not in an interview setting. Sense that's what I'm getting at. Interviewing her in connection with this case, there were 4 that I'm aware of.
Do you know how many hours you've spent interviewing her or others associated with this case?
I believe at the detention hearing, I testified that it was around 10. I believe that's accurate.
So when did you initially interview Ms. Lobber?
It would have been, I believe, April 26th, shortly after her arrest, maybe the day or 2 after her arrest.
All right. And during that initial interview, can you tell me what took place during that interview?
We spoke to Ms. Lobber about the items that were found in her home subject to the search warrant. We told her that the charges that she was facing, that she was on drug court probation for in the outside county, could continue to be charged against her due to a violation of her drug court. We told her that she was facing felony distribution charges in that case.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Distribution of what?
Controlled substance.
What did you seize from her home?
So the charges that she was facing in relation to her drug court were separate from the ones that resulted from the search warrant. But we found illicit THC products as well as a firearm in her home.
And why was the firearm of significance?
It was a violation of her drug court probation to be in possession of a firearm.
Well, she was a convicted felon, isn't that right?
Yes, that's also pertinent.
So she was also potentially looking at charges of felon in possession of a firearm, correct?
Correct.
And you told her that in the first interview?
Correct.
Did you tell her that those would be state or federal charges?
I believe we told her that they could be both.
They could be both, or either.
Either.
Did you tell her potentially how much time she could be looking at in prison if she was charged and convicted of these additional offenses?
I don't recall saying a specific number of days, but I know we made mention that there was significant jail time attached to those charges.
Significant prison time.
Prison time.
All right, so what did she tell you in that first interview about her associations with Kouri Richens?
She confirmed that she had worked for Kouri in the past. She told us that she knew Kouri through Kouri's Aunt Doreen, whom Carmen worked for, cleaning houses. She initially stated that she didn't know anything about what had happened with Eric's death or anything about fentanyl. And we explained to her that the position that we were in to try to investigate anything that might have happened, whether that was inculpatory or exculpatory for anyone, and that any information that she might have about it would be helpful to us.
All right, if we just break that down just a little bit. What did she tell you about ever dealing fentanyl at that time?
She said that she hadn't really ever, in her words, messed with fentanyl. Then she later admitted she had tried it once and didn't have a good experience with it.
Ooh. What?
Did she tell you a daughter had overdosed on fentanyl?
I don't recall. I could review the video and give you an answer on that, but I don't recall.
And isn't it true she told you she never dealt with fentanyl, that she dealt in pain pills and marijuana and other things of that sort?
In the first interview, yes.
And what did you tell her you could do for her if she gave you information about Eric Richins' death or anything that could help you in the investigation of Eric Richins' death?
We explained to her that if she had information regarding Eric Richins' death, that we could work with the prosecutor who was responsible for her charges, for both the search warrant and the drug court charges. We didn't make her any specific promises, but we told her that we were willing to work with the prosecutor's office on those charges.
Is Ms. Lobber in custody at this time? Is she in jail?
No.
All right, was she ever charged with anything that was to do with dealing drugs, a violation of her drug court, or with anything that was seized during that search?
I don't know. I don't believe so. I had no dealings with the inner workings of that county's prosecutor's office after we interviewed Ms. Lobber. After we interviewed Ms. Lobber, we informed the prosecutor's office that she was being cooperative with our investigation, and then they and her attorneys worked out whatever kind of deal they worked out with her.
Well, isn't it true, Detective, that you went back and spoke with Ms. Lobber and guaranteed her that she would not be charged in any way as connected to Eric Richens' death if she continued to cooperate?
I didn't make that statement in those words, but we impressed upon her that, yes, in exchange for helpful information in this case, that she could potentially have reduced or eliminated charges.
Well, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because I know you had a number of interviews with her, and I've certainly reviewed at least 6. Because those interviews were recorded, correct?
Correct.
And any interview that you have had with her would be turned over to defense counsel, correct?
Correct.
All right.
Well, we turn it over to the state, and I believe it's their
All right.
opportunity to turn it over to the defense.
So if I represented that they have turned over at this time 6 interviews with yourself and Ms. Lobber, or with, who was the other detective, I'm sorry, that was with you during those interviews?
Detective Maynard.
Detective Maynard. That they've turned over 6 at this time. Would that sound correct to you?
Yes.
All right. So I want to go to the 6th interview, which was May 13th of 2023. Does that sound right?
Yes.
So isn't it true at that interview, you told her that she was going to be testifying in front of a federal grand jury?
I don't recall that.
Yarkis?
Am I in the video that you're referencing?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I don't recall that.
So you don't recall that you told her that you and Detective Maynard had discussions with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and that they had guaranteed you that she would not be charged in connection with Eric's death so long as she testified in front of the grand jury?
I don't remember it, but it doesn't sound unreasonable.
They can kind of tell you whatever they want, can't they, or no? Right? They can make up all kinds of lies and shit, I guess.
You're the lead detective, right?
Yes. Oh, shit. Yeah, let's go. Oh!
Did Ms.
That's
Lobber
Parker.
testify in front of the federal grand jury regarding this case?
I don't believe so.
You don't believe so. Do you know? Yes or no?
I don't know for a fact.
You don't know. Did you testify in front of a federal grand jury regarding this matter?
No.
Do you know of anyone in your investigation that testified before a federal grand jury?
No.
But you do recall telling her that she would be testifying before a federal grand jury the next week.
I honestly don't remember it. I'm not surprised by the information because when we were working with prosecutors' offices at the time, there were both federal prosecutors and state prosecutors that were involved in it. And that sounds like a likely discussion that could have been made that she would need to testify before a grand jury.
The next week.
Like I said, I don't remember those. If I review the video, I probably could speak to it more.
Did you review an interview that Detective Maynard did with Carmen Lobber on?
They're talking about, again, if you haven't just joined, Kouri Richens' housekeeper, a convicted drug dealer, which they've just said, confessed to selling fentanyl to Kouri Richens. It says 2 batches in the weeks before she allegedly used some to poison her husband, allegedly. Carmen Marie Lobber, she's 51 years old. And so she was linked over a series of text messages to Richens, the mom of 3, so on and so forth. So.
The day before that, May 12th, regarding a Zoom meeting he had had with different agencies, in this case, federal and state.
I believe so.
And do you recall in that he explained to her what she would be doing in terms of testifying in front of the grand jury?
Again, I don't recall the discussion about the grand jury. If I review the video, I can speak to it more, but I just don't recall it from my memory.
All right, do you
I
recall?
don't believe that video is one that I have recently reviewed. I reviewed the initial 3 or 4 that we had with Carmen prior to this hearing.
All right, we'll go back to those in just a minute. Let me ask if you recall this. Do you recall telling her on May 13th that she would be testifying in front of the grand jury and that the goal would be to convict Kouri Richens of murder? Do you recall that?
No, I do not.
Ms. Lobber got a letter of immunity from the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Utah, did she not?
I believe so, yes.
But you don't know if she testified in front of the grand jury.
I do not.
All right. So tell me the first interview. I'm going to go back now to that initial interview in April 2020 or April 27th, 2023.
Okay.
How did that interview end?
Can you tell me the date again? April 27th, the first time we
Yes, the
spoke.
very first time you interviewed her.
We told her that she probably had some things to think on and consider, and that if she decided she wanted to talk to us about this case, that she could contact us, or that we would be in contact with her again shortly.
Yes. So did you tell her you'd be back in a few days after she had some time to think about what had happened?
Yes.
All right. And did you go back in a few days?
Yes.
Do you recall the date that you went back?
I believe it was the following Tuesday.
So if I told you that was May
Or-
2nd, 2023, would you have any reason
Sounds
to?
accurate, yes.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk over each other. Go ahead.
That sounds accurate, yes.
All right. So the second interview. What did you tell Ms. Lobber in that interview?
We told her a lot of things. Do you want to talk about something specific?
All right. Did you ask her if she had time to reconsider her relationship or her activities with Ms. Richens?
I believe so. When we first sat down and she entered the interview room, she immediately started telling us that she had been thinking about calling us and wanted to talk to us.
All right. And you reminded her that she was looking at serious charges and you guys would have her back. You would help her if she cooperated.
Yes.
Had you seized
What happened?
a phone, excuse me, a phone from Ms. Lobber at that time?
Yes.
Was there more than one, or did you seize one?
There was more than one. There were 2, I believe, that we relied on for evidence and content. There were multiple old phones, I believe, that were seized from her home, but the 2 that we downloaded and were subject to our investigation, there were 2.
Were either of those phones, excuse me, were either of those phones
I think they actually fixed the audio a little bit. So let me.
ones that she was using in March of 2022?
Not really.
I believe so, yes.
I think one of them was. All right. So what did she tell you in that second interview about communications between herself and Ms. Richens that she thought might be helpful to you? Sorry, I'm interrupting her.
In most, if not all, of the interviews that we had with Carmen, her memory went back and forth on what happened, what didn't happen, and which times those things happened. So chronologically, it's hard to say where we went in the interview. But she began very slowly, and it appeared to us that she was minimizing her involvement, but said that she had participated in some way in getting Kouri illicit substances. And like I said, it began small and her minimizing her involvement and developed into more specific statements.
And these statements took place over the course of 3 or 4 additional interviews.
Correct.
Your Honor, the state objects on relevant grounds. As the court's aware, Ms. Lobber submitted testimony by 1102 witness statement. And the standard for the preliminary hearing is notwithstanding credible testimony to the contrary. The court's also well aware that Article 1, Section 12 of our Constitution and progeny case law says that discovery is not a proper purpose for this hearing.
Well,
Help me out, where are we headed here?
Well, Your Honor, Mr. Bloodworth had stated as we were at the beginning of the hearing that in large part he was putting Detective O'Driscoll on in the interest of fairness and justice because Ms. Richins' current counsel had never had the opportunity to cross-examine him on his prior testimony. And he testified in his prior testimony about these things. So my understanding was that this was our opportunity, since we haven't had one before, that was agreed upon and represented to the court, to cross-examine him about that prior testimony, even though this is the preliminary hearing. And these facts very much go to probable cause.
It's the last part that I'm not following you on. How do these go to probable cause? I don't think I've heard anything that sounds like testimony that Carmen Lobber did not have the opportunity to perceive or know the things that she claims to have perceived or known. I don't get to weigh credibility outside of those extraordinary circumstances at a preliminary hearing. I'm trying to give you as much latitude as the state will agree to. I'm staying out of the way, but at some point the limits on the probable cause determination kick in.
All right, well, based on the earlier discussion with the court, I'd like to go a little farther in terms of reviewing his testimony from the prior hearing.
Understood. If you need clarification of it, but if we, I imagine, don't hold me to this, but I imagine that if we keep reviewing the investigative steps and potential sources of bias on Ms. Lobber, you're going to continue drawing objections regarding relevance.
I understand. All right.
We'll give Ms. Lewis some additional limited latitude here, Mr. Bloodworth. Let's see where we go.
So when you testified before, did you testify as to how many times Ms. Lobber had allegedly provided drugs to Ms. Richins?
I believe so, yes.
And how many times did you say that that happened?
At that time of testimony, we understood there to be 3 transactions that Ms. Lobber participated in with Ms. Richins.
And what were the dates of those 3 transactions?
February 11th, February 26th.
Oh, shoot. We'll say that's me. Oh, okay. I think I'm still here. What happened? Oh, okay. It was just a glitch. I thought the internet went down or something.
And did you testify at the prior hearing, or do you recall what Ms. Lobber said she provided to Ms. Richins, what sort of drugs she provided to Ms. Richins on those 3 occasions?
Again, it went back and forth with details and was clarified the more information she was presented with from phones and other physical evidence. The determination we came to after the conclusion of all 4 interviews was that she had procured some type of prescription or non-prescription opiate on the first transaction, and that the following 2 were fentanyl pills, counterfeit fentanyl pills.
And so you said that in the first interview, she told you that she didn't deal in fentanyl. Can you just explain what you did in your investigation to try and confirm? How did you come back around to that it was fentanyl?
So in the initial interview with Ms. Lobber, and the statements she made about not having dealt in fentanyl before, in my opinion, my experience with interviewing people, especially in custody, I think she was minimizing her involvement. I think she was trying to cover herself from any type of further legal problems. And then after we came back the second time, I think she had changed her mind about how much information she wanted to reveal to us. And that's when she started talking to us about the fentanyl pills, and that she recalled specifically that they were fentanyl.
And did you interview other people regarding those transactions?
Investigators from the Summit County Sheriff's Office did, yes. I wasn't involved in every single interview, but yes.
Did she tell you how many pills total that she provided to Ms. Richins, or that she recalled providing?
One moment, please. Mr. Lobber.
Your Honor, the state reduces relevance and objection. What's going on here is defense counsel is asking questions about the detention hearing, which the defense counsel has a transcript of. Did she tell you this? Well, we know this because he testified to it.
Let's just assume that this question, which goes directly to the probable cause determination, is foundation for whatever's coming next. So I'm going to allow this.
I appreciate that, Your Honor. All these recordings are, all these interviews are recorded in discovery and can be interviewed.
I understand.
It's already out there. They already have it. She already has
Relevance
information.
is overruled. Ms. Lewis, please proceed.
Did she tell you a number of pills, the number of pills she provided to Ms. Richins?
Are you meaning in total or per transaction?
Either way, whatever is easiest for you to
She
explain.
made an estimate of approximately 15 to 30 pills per transaction.
So a total of
Maximum of
75,
90.
30 to 90,
30 to 90.
45 to 90 pills. All right. Did you have any of those pills ever been found?
No.
None in the Richins' home,
No.
correct? None in Ms. Richins' car, correct?
No.
So you've never had the opportunity to test any pills that were allegedly provided from Ms. Lobber to Ms. Richins, is that correct?
Correct.
Lost them.
Not one, correct?
Correct.
So the only knowledge you have as to what those pills were came from Ms. Lobber, correct?
And corroborating witnesses.
Corroborating witnesses that,
That supplied Miss Lobber with the pills, or put her in contact with the person that supplied her the pills.
All right.
Or drove her to the transactions where the pills were purchased.
okay. Again though, have you tested any of those pills or found any of those pills so they could be tested?
No, we have not.
So you actually do not have any idea what the pills were that were given to Ms. Richins, correct?
Just based on the testimony, witness statements by Miss Lobber and others.
But you don't know.
I don't know.
So you don't know if the pills were Oxycontin, correct?
No, I do not.
You don't know if the pills were fentanyl, correct?
Based on what Miss Lobber told us, she was sure that they were fentanyl. And her description of them match what I know currently to be Drug Trends street illicit fentanyl pills, with the description being a light green to blue round pill.
So let me ask you again. Do you know if any of those pills contain fentanyl?
No, I do not.
Do you know if these pills contained illegal drugs, opioids of any kind?
I do not.
When is the last time you sought evidence in this case?
Sought evidence, is that what you said?
Yes.
The case is active and ongoing until trial. I presume any new information that comes to us will continue to be considered as evidence.
Are you still interviewing witnesses?
Not at this moment, no.
I know you're not at this moment. You're here testifying. Have you recently interviewed witnesses or others investigating this case or involved in this case been interviewing witnesses?
Yes. Some of our team have reached out to witnesses that we've talked to in the past and have kept in contact with them.
Have you been provided statements or interviews by a private investigator in this matter?
They've been entered into systems that I have access to, yes. Not personally been provided with them, but yes.
Who's that private investigator work for?
The Richins family, the Eugene Richins family.
Is that who pays this private investigator to provide information to you?
I assume so.
When was the last time you executed a search warrant in this case?
I believe it was 1 or 2 weeks ago on the Richins home.
Still looking for the pills?
That was to seize a voice recorder that was located in the home.
All right. Just give me one moment. Just back up for one moment about the pills. So you said you interviewed other people. I think it was one other person who provided allegedly fentanyl to Ms. Lobber. Is that correct?
There were 2 individuals that we interviewed that were reported to have provided Ms. Lobber with the pills. One with the non-fentanyl opiates, and then with the fentanyl pills.
Okay, so one provided the one that did not have fentanyl, and one provided the ones that she claimed did have fentanyl.
Correct.
Okay, so that individual, or actually either of those individuals, were they manufacturers of those pills?
I don't know. I don't believe so.
Well, one of them told you it was for prescription, correct?
I believe Ms. Lobber told us that. Would you like me to use names?
That's fine.
I believe Ms. Lobber told us that Ms. Kohler, who she claimed she got the non-fentanyl pills from, that they were somebody's personal prescription.
Okay. So we don't actually know where those pills came from either.
No.
All right. And the individual who provided fentanyl, he was not the manufacturer of fentanyl. He told you he didn't manufacture fentanyl, correct?
I believe so. Other detectives in our office, yeah, interviewed him.
All right. Do you know what red devils are?
No, I do not.
Did you record all of your conversations with Ms. Lobber, or if someone else was interviewing them, were they all recorded?
Interviews, yes. We've yes.
Besides Kouri Richens, did you interview or investigate into any other possible suspects in this case?
Interview, no. I personally try to keep an open mind as to all possibilities of what could have caused Eric Richins' death. But I didn't conduct interviews with any other suspects that were persons of interest labeled as suspects.
You didn't collect phones or look at anything else from any other suspects, correct?
We collected several phones from involved individuals in this case, and potentially people that could have had access to the Richins home at different times, that could give alternate explanations of how the fentanyl got in the system. But I didn't conduct any interviews of individuals regarding their involvement.
All right. One quick one.
Yeah, she's been saying she's
Nothing.
innocent. It's just
Brief scheduling
preliminary
question.
hearing.
Roughly how much time do you have on redirect?
Less than 10 minutes.
Okay, please proceed.
I wasn't sure how long or short these were going to be. So, but we covered this story earlier today. We were waiting for the preliminary hearing. It never happened because there's like an hour delay. So instead, we just went over the details of the case. It's a pretty crazy story. saying she poisoned this guy with fentanyl, and she had previously tried as well and failed. During Valentine's Day, she got him a sandwich. He said he took one bite into the sandwich. He broke out in hives, had to take Benadryl, went to sleep for like 2 hours. The other weird thing, too, that we found out earlier today, Kouri Richens' mother previously had a relationship, right? She had I thought it was with a man, but apparently with a woman. So a relationship with a woman, and the woman dies from an OD, and Kouri Richens' mother, I guess, apparently had her name as a benefactor, of benefactor of the estate or whatever. And so Kouri Richens, with this guy, I forgot his name, was Aaron. Let me see. She tried to do something similar. Eric Richens. She tried to do something similar with the estate and like with all this life insurance and all this. It's a huge mess. So it's just a weird, odd thing. I don't know. And she published a book talking about grief, talking about a children's book. And supposedly was messing around with somebody on this time.
Can we get some more water for the witnesses?
Fast forward.
Mark, the State's Exhibit 68, Utah Bureau of Forensic Services forensic analysis report related to the collection of THC gummies. May I approach?
Of course. Ms. Lewis.
I just can't hear Mr. Bloodworth.
Okay.
So I'm just
sorry.
Get closer to that mic.
I'm forced to remark.
So am I.
Evidentiary
Obviously.
argument this morning.
Oh, yeah, well,
Sorry.
I'll try to talk into the microphone, Your Honor. Detective O'Driscoll, do you recognize what's been marked as State's Exhibit for Identification 68?
Yes.
You testified earlier regarding toxicology on some THC gummies. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Does that toxicology report reference the THC gummies that you were testifying to?
It appears to, yes.
And then are you familiar with the difference in toxicology reports between fentanyl being indicated and fentanyl being found?
Yes, I'm remembering discussions with our evidence technicians, our forensic technicians, and that there's a difference there that I didn't know before.
I mean, what was the bottom line of that discussion with the evidence technician?
The bottom line was that something could be tested and indicate for precursors or some chemical structure that I don't fully understand that could indicate possibilities of fentanyl, but the state crime lab won't say for certain that fentanyl is present.
And in that instance, the reports read as that one does, am I right? Fentanyl indicated, not identified.
Correct. It says fentanyl was indicated in the gummies in the plastic bag.
May I treat this? Your Honor, the statement states 68 into evidence.
Ms. Lewis, any objection?
no objections under the same considerations of all the exhibits in this
It'll
hearing.
be admitted for the purpose of the preliminary hearing only.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, the state directs the court to item 14, which begins on the bottom
That's true.
of page 2.
Eric outsmarted Kouri by leaving all of his life insurance policies to his sister. She was pissed about that, and apparently Kouri Richens punched his sister.
Continues to the top of page 3.
She thought she was going to get all that stuff. He removed her because he suspected something was up. He told people he thought she was trying to kill him.
Detective O'Driscoll, you testified on cross-examination regarding interviews with Carmen and Lobber. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Are all those interviews either audio recorded, video recorded, audio recorded or audio and video recorded?
Yes.
And to the extent your testimony, recollecting back over a year, would differ from the reportings, do you think the reporting's the accurate testimony?
I do. I sympathize with Ms. Lobber at this point, having been a year past the last time we talked about this.
Sure. Did you have an opportunity to watch a video recording of an assistant U.S. attorney and some federal investigators interviewing Ms. Lobber?
I didn't view it, but I was told about it.
Were you told that they were interviewing her kind of pursuant to a grand jury subpoena and before the grand jury testimony?
Yes, I'm remembering now that their appearance there, their interview of her was in regard to a grand jury subpoena that at the time we were not aware that they were planning.
Regarding Ms. Lobber's testimony, Ms. Lobber's interview with you and Detective Major, I want to perhaps clarify some of the transactions. Is it right to say that Ms. Lobber testified to one transaction with Susan Kohler involving Roxy's?
Yes.
And then a transaction involving fentanyl on February the 11th, a second fentanyl on February the 26th, and a third on March 9th?
Yes.
Regarding the fentanyl portions of the conversation, separate than the Roxy portions of the conversation, did detectives from Summit County talk with the intermediary between Carmen Lobber and the ultimate fentanyl dealer to Ms. Lobber?
Yes.
And did that intermediary say that Ms. Lobber requested fentanyl?
Yes.
Did Summit County detectives talk with the man who distributed the fentanyl to Ms. Lobber?
Yes.
And did he say that she requested fentanyl?
Yes.
And that he ultimately provided fentanyl?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Just 3 or 4 questions.
Within the scope of reprep, please.
Yes, understood. You said that all interviews with Ms. Lobber were recorded, correct?
For sure, all the ones that I was involved in, yes.
All right. So does that mean that there have been meetings and discussions with her, with Ms. Lobber and either yourself or other people, the Summit County Sheriff's Office or the prosecution not recorded?
Not that were substantive in content in regards to the case. We have on occasion spoken with Ms. Lobber because she was placed on supervised probation by an out-of-county court and was to be under ankle monitor that was supervised by our department. So we have talked to her about compliance with those orders. We have also transported her, given her a ride to meetings with her attorney, and so there has been small talk, but not interview about the case that has not been recorded.
Okay. You drive her to her meetings?
She needs a ride sometimes.
So you just in discussing this with, in answering Mr. Butler's questions, you said that Ms. Lobber provided fentanyl to Ms. Richens 3 times.
I know that Miss Lobber had difficulty remembering all the details of her interactions with Ms. Richins. I know at the time that we conducted the interviews, what she had told us in those interviews is what I testified to at the detention hearing.
And that was that there was 1 time that was Oxycontin and 2 times that she said she delivered fentanyl. Isn't that right?
Correct. Since those interviews, new forensic information from cell phones was received, was reviewed, and determined that there were 3 transactions involving fentanyl, including one after Eric Richins' death. I believe the most accurate statement from Ms. Lobber is the 1102 statement that she submitted for today's hearing.
All right. You said that you spoke with the individual who allegedly provided fentanyl to Ms. Lobber, and you just testified that he told you she asked specifically for fentanyl. That's not accurate, though. Correct?
He told, from what I'm remembering from watching the video of the other investigators that interviewed him, he told us that Miss Lobber requested, in his words, blues, which I understand to be fentanyl pills.
Didn't he say she requested Roxy 30s? Or Roxy's?
It's possible. I think blues was also mentioned.
Roxy's are typically Oxycontin, correct?
Yes.
So as you're sitting here today, Detective, can you say with certainty that the pills that Ms. Lobber allegedly gave to Ms. Richins were the pills that were taken by Eric Richins, or were pills that were taken, if any pills were taken, by Eric Richins?
No.
And as you sit here right now, do you have any idea, like actual knowledge, not an idea, let me rephrase that, do you have any knowledge of how fentanyl got into Mr. Richardson's system? Mr. Richardson's system? I'm sorry.
No.
I
Anything further for the detective, Mr. Lobber?
No, we don't.
You can step down, sir. Thank you.
All right. Any other witnesses for today?
Mr. Bloodworth, it's now an appropriate time to take a lunch break.
Yes,
Are they
sir.
taking a
Ms.
lunch
Lewis,
break?
any objection?
What?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Come back at
I thought they were
1:30.
done.
Does that sound workable?
A lunch
Yes,
break?
sir.
It's not even at 4 o'clock over here, but they're
Okay. We will be in recess until
they're in
1:30.
Utah.
Please follow the deputy's instructions.
Recess till when?
We will be in recess until 1:30. Please
1:30.
follow the deputy's instructions so we can do this in an orderly way. Wish you all very
Hell
best.
no,
Thank you.
to the now,
Court's in
now.
recess.
Hell no. So wait.
Thank you.
Okay. We will be in recess until 1:30. Please follow the deputy's instructions so we can do this in an orderly way.
Isn't it 1:30 over there already?
Wish you all very
They got like a 2-minute break? What's love got to do? Um, 1:34 currently here in Utah County. I thought you said 1:30, right? Maybe it's like a 5-minute line. Can't be.
Please follow the deputy's instructions back at 1:30. Does that sound workable? Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Come back at 1:30. Does that sound workable?
Sounds like you said 1:30. Yeah, 5 minutes. Eat. Oh, you're right. It's delayed. It's an hour delayed. So, I didn't even think about that. So really, that was at 12:30 that they said 1:30. I forgot because we're an hour behind the real time because they can't stream it live. Oh, that's gonna be weird. Shit will be going till like 11 p.m. at night with this thing. Es un poquito raro. I don't know if they're gonna do that for the trial too. There's this other case that I really want to cover, and I really want to cover. Oh, yeah, it's getting interesting. It's getting interesting. I already got a thumbnail to collect the notes, but I mean, I wonder what other witnesses they have today. So, yeah, so that's the thing about that 1 hour behind. We'll be here till like 10 o'clock at night. God damn. 11 o'clock at night. All right, it's lunchtime. I guess we'll wait. I really want to cover that other story, but don't you tell me why. Yeah, this is a good one. This is a good one. I wonder if they're gonna have like a full 8-hour day, or is it just like half days or something, or quarter days? I'm just doing something real quick. Because the thing is, I only have one more notification after this, so I don't want to end cover, then have none. I mean, unless we just do it anyway, continue. But because they say that the housekeeper supposedly is going to testify too. Hmm. Damn. Do a Tennessee hot mix. What does that mean? You just throw all the shit together? I feel like we'd have more viewers on the other story, so I don't want this news story to get lost in this uh, in the middle of this live, you know. But we do have an hour. Okay, until 4:30 p.m. Eastern. I wonder if we should just end this and give me a little bit. I might need like 30 minutes to set up the next story. We can do the news story, and then just come back. Come back. I don't know. Come back. Come on, tell me. Tennessee hot mix. You just throw all that shit in there. We ain't putting nothing away. Huh? Really? That's weird. I'll have to check it out. All right. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to end it for now. They're coming back in an hour. I need like, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes or so to set up the new story, I think. Then we'll cover the new story, and then we'll come back to this after the lunch break, all right? All right, thank you guys for coming again. Appreciate you. Love you. Bye. Bloop, 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 bloop.